Yeah, might just get started. And just seeing if anyone had seen any interesting breeding behaviors lately. Um, I know that the goldfinches are still quite active around my house, and I've still had some fledglings being fed at my feeders. But I was wondering if anyone else had seen some nice late breeding behaviors they wanted to share. Said Wren. Wow, where was that, Bob?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been reported actually two birds or three birds reported at the MAC Montezuma Audubon Center
Yeah.
since late July apparently, and then recently there was someone up there noted the two and maybe two males singing, and suspected it might be breeding. Jay McGowan was up there on Saturday or Sunday or Monday, I forgot which day, and confirmed breeding with adult carrying food. I was up there yesterday morning doing recording and taking pictures, and I also had a male catch an insect and drop down with it. So sedge wrens
Wow.
breeding at the back, and that's pretty amazing. It's typical for them. They're sort of northern, western, Midwest breeders. But this time of year, they tend to, as they not really migrate, but tend to move around, look for a second brood, and we're fortunate to have one right here in the local area.
Nice. Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, that's tends to be their MO, that they come this way in the late summer and they just start up breeding a second time after breeding further in the Midwest, and they just show up in different places every year, it seems like.
Mhm.
So that's pretty cool. I hadn't heard about that one, so that's great. And Arbella said sound like you saw that one too, huh?
Yeah, it was at the Audubon Center at Montezuma. Well, we heard one, we might have heard two, but like one of them was far back. So that was really cool.
Okay, nice. Well, I'm glad you got up to Montezuma, Arbella. Um, Anyone else have exciting things to share? Yes.
I
And
guess my favorite thing that I had never seen before was we've had lots of white-breasted nuthatches, and I've got some Norway spruces right out back, uh, easy to see. And the adult would take seed from the feeder and tuck it into the um, bark, and the baby would be there and grab it out of the bark. So it felt like it was
oh,
teaching it to
nice.
forage on its own with seed from the backyard. It was kind of
Oh,
fun to
that's so
see.
great.
Did it many times.
Oh, that's
That's
really cool.
teaching
Very
them to cache even,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
actually, because
Yeah.
yeah,
how to cache and feed. That's awesome. That's great. Anyone else have anything they've been seeing lately?
Uh,
goldfinches, lots and lots of goldfinches.
Yeah, they're going crazy right now.
I've got juvenile Carolina wrens showing up. They're here in the winter bit, and but the house wrens sort of chased them out, and then now they've been breeding, and I thought they were starting second nests in a couple of the nest boxes, and then I dead bird in one of them, but all of a sudden, and they've been going nuts. It's like all the time they're sounding like I'm trying to get in their nest box and I'm nowhere near anything. It's just like freaking. And then I keep hearing Carolina wrens, and I knew they were generally in the neighborhood, but not right in my backyard. And they started showing up, the juveniles showing up. So obviously they were nearby and they're getting back their territory for the winter, I guess.
Oh,
Which will be
yeah,
nice.
maybe. Yeah.
But they're kind of a favorite of mine.
Very nice. Yeah.
And of course,
About
there's the wars.
Acadian.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. No, go ahead.
The wars have started between the hummingbirds, but it's not breeding behavior. It's just like late fall behavior. But it's like, how do they eat when they spend all that time fighting?
Yeah, I know. They don't. They don't get much food. And Vivian, were you gonna say Acadian flycatcher? Is that what you were gonna say?
Flycatcher. Yeah, it was my first ever sighting. I'm kind of a new birder anyway, so.
Okay, nice. That's a good one too. I mean, they're only in the southern part of the state, so that's great.
Yeah, New York City.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, they are down there.
I was hoping for a interesting yard confirmation a week or two ago. I was tracking a Toey and I had him singing for 6 days, but then didn't hear him again. So unfortunately, I couldn't log that.
Ah, yeah. I wonder if it was just recently.
This was a week or two ago,
Okay.
Eastern Toey.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it was like a young bird that was like practicing singing, or if it was actually like an adult that was, you know, just singing late in the season. So yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of hard to know this time. Like starting in like July, late July and August, you tend to get a lot of this like resurgence in singing. And it can be for some species, I think it's related to the day length because it's like similar to the spring when they start singing for their breeding season. But then it can also be the young birds that Jared, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, just Allison can't hear me. Allison, can you
Oh.
hear anything? No. Okay, sorry.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah.
It was a private message. I just want to make sure people could still hear
Okay.
me. Yeah, and then there's and then the juveniles start practicing singing as well in this time of year. So it can be also juvies. It can be hard to tell, and everyone's molting right now too. So everyone looks like a mess, and so it's like really hard to know what's going on sometimes. But hopefully your tohees will show up again next year.
Hopefully, yeah. But
Yeah.
it not necessarily a fair breeding code then this late in the season. Is that for a 7-day singing?
I mean, you could still enter it as an S. It sounds like you had it for only 6 days though, right? Not for 7.
Right. If I'd had it for 7.
If you'd had it for 7, I mean, you can still enter it because it's something was still using that territory, and yeah, you can still enter it. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
and the other note there too is it doesn't have to be 7 days in a row. It's just 7 days apart too.
Right,
So
right. Yeah,
yeah.
and I had him
So
up
if it
6 days and that was it.
gotcha.
Just
Yeah.
under.
No, the
Nice.
towies have been tricky around my yard actually all year, and I don't have them as a yard breeder either. So even though it's really close.
Yeah. Let's see. Arabella said she had young pied-billed grebes and common gallinules and marsh wrens. And actually, yeah, when I was there, well, Jim and I were there just a little over a week ago, I guess. It was really soon. It went by really fast. Anyways, yeah, we had lots of pied-billed grebes babies still with their little stripy heads and everything. So so that was really cool. And then I'm just reading. Let's see. Oh yeah, so a red-tailed hawk juvenile just stopped screaming. So he's finally is fledged, I guess. And then the house wren's fledged. And yes, and sparrows are grouping up, house sparrows.
And even
Are
other
swallow.
sparrows too. I've had more song sparrows around my house this last week than are the 2 breeding pairs that I know of here. So yeah.
Yeah, and I started seeing some mixed warbler flocks as well. So there's been some some of those boreal migrants are moving already. So yeah, it gets to be a tricky time of year. So that leads into one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight too, which is one of the common questions that we get every fall is what to do with the Atlas portal if you're using the eBird app on your phone. And really, you know, there are certain species like we were talking about, like sedge wren and things like robins and sparrows and even wood peewees and things can keep breeding really late in the season. And so there's still a chance that you'll be running into some fledglings or some sort of other confirmed behaviors. So it's okay to leave the app in the Atlas portal mode so that you're ready and you can just enter whatever breeding behaviors you do run into late in the season. The only caveat there being that, you know, some people don't like to stick to the block boundaries as much in the non-breeding season. So, but if you're going to stick to using just, you know, birding just within each of the Atlas blocks, then by all means leave it in the portal. You can leave it in the portal year round. That's not a problem. But if you just want to like bird and not worry about the block boundaries anymore, then I would take it out of the portal, and that would be helpful for us. But do keep entering, you know, if you're seeing like waxwings or goldfinches and things like that, if you're still seeing those around, please do enter those and put them in the Atlas portal. So yeah, just reading. Yeah, most everything molts, I think. Everything molts. It's just to at which ages and which time of year. But the cowbirds look really funny right now, the young cowbirds, because they have like a few of those black shiny feathers coming in for the males. And then they have this like dull gray on the rest of their body. So they look really, really wacky right now. So yeah, that's great that you're able to see that. I think, yeah, seeing those the mixed like blackbird flocks with like blackbirds, grackles, cowbirds, starlings, you can see a lot of those different molt patterns there. That can be really fun to watch.
And they stick out like a sore thumb for all of those blackbirds
Yes.
because the males have shiny black feathers coming in.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't have a whole lot to talk about tonight. The last town hall, Jared talked about the ways that we can add documentation to our records. So that's adding either just detailed notes or photos or sound recordings as well. Those can be really helpful for anything that's unusual anywhere in the state. And then beyond that, the other thing that I tend to ask people to do this time of year, things are slowing down, you may not be atlasing as much. It's a good time now to think about, to like go back through and make sure that you've added codes to all of your checklists, that you've, you know, if you took notes on paper, that you've entered all of that into the app or on the website. Basically just getting your data, you know, cleaned up and ready, you know, and done for the season. Just to make sure that everything, you know, nothing is lingering around. And then that way, that's really helpful for us because we can then do some data review throughout the winter, and then also be able to assess what blocks still need additional work. And that way we can plan a little bit better for next year. And next year is our last field season, so it's kind of crazy. And we have a lot to do. And so we would really appreciate people making sure that their data is all good and ready to go and documented.
I have a question for you.
Yes, go ahead, Ellen.
I'm in Seattle, where I live.
Mhm.
I go to the Finger Lakes spring and fall, and I'll be there the whole month of September. And I usually don't find much in the way of breeding behavior. But is there, my cottage is in a priority block. I'd like to try to complete it. I have a number of possible and observed. I'm listed them off now from the first years. What might I try to focus on? I've written down a few. I'm right on a lake. I've never seen a pied-billed grebe on my little lake. But I know what a baby looks like. So, what else might I still see or hear in September? In Central?
Yeah, I'm just gonna put a link in the chat. So we have a guide to late nesting species. And that goes through and lists a bunch of the different species that are breeding. Most of them are in August, but you'll still get some of them in September as well. And let's see, I'm just thinking, yeah, so I just put in the chat oh wait, put it in the wrong chat, hang on. There, now it's in the chat. So that one will go through and detail like the list of species. There's also on our YouTube channel just a couple, maybe it was the end of July, I did one of these town halls on late breeders, and that one I do have a presentation that I go through as well and has some more information too. So that's another place to look. So I'm just pulling up our YouTube link.
Okay.
And somebody put in the chat to code owls. Yeah, so that's a good one. If you do
I was afraid that was all anybody was going to say was owls.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I have not got any breeding behavior on owls because okay.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely hard, but if you hear them, the several of the owl species we have are non-migratory. So that, and they maintain their territory year round. So like great horned and barred owl, they're going to stay year round. And so if you hear them singing or calling even in September, then that means that they're local.
Okay. So defending territory, I can't remember the code. That would be what I might use in a September owl call.
For owls, actually, we make an exception for them. We call that singing for owls.
Right. Okay. But
Yeah.
if I hear an owl in September in the dark, it would boost my nocturnal time, which I also need.
Yes.
But it would be an indication of territorial defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in singing, for singing.
Okay.
And if you hear them duetting, then that's the courtship code.
Right. Okay, thanks. I'll look at your two links.
And Bob asked if the S7 code works for owls. Yes, it does. Yeah. If you hear them calling more than a week apart, then yes, that counts as S7.
Excuse me? So,
Yeah, Arabella.
recently took on a new block, and well, I don't think I'm going to finish it because based on what I'm seeing around me, there won't be, by the time I finish it, there won't be a lot of fledglings or anything really around. Because, well, we're going there this weekend, and then the weekend after that. But could I complete it next year? Or
Mm-hmm.
oh, I could. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I didn't hear you very well, but let me just make sure that I understood correctly. So you said you're working on a block, a new block, and you're gonna hit it up the next couple of weekends, but you're probably not going to finish it. And can you finish it next year? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, you can definitely finish it up next year for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
There is a question about used nests right above Bob's
Oh,
S7
yes.
question too, Julie.
Thank you. Yes. Can we enter nests that we see after leaves drop? For example, I think I know where hummingbirds and orchard orioles have nests, but I haven't seen the nests yet. Yes, for sure. If you can identify that nest to species, then you can definitely use that used nest code. That's the UN code. And that can be very helpful for like orioles and hummingbirds and some other species that have very distinctive nests. I do suggest if it's one that if it's a species that maybe is harder to identify, definitely try to take photos if you can and add those to your checklist. And that way, if we have any questions, it's there and we can just look at it right easily and confirm that that is the species. Yeah, that is the best way to do that. You can get Phoebe nests and robin nests and Baltimore Oriole nests and things like that pretty easily this time of year once the leaves fall.
I've had some
Eagle-
vireo nests too, Julie,
Mm-hmm.
thrown my way. Yeah.
Or eagle nests.
Eagle. Yep.
This is my question actually with the used nest code is
Yeah.
it should be a nest that was used this season though, correct?
It just has to have been used within the atlas.
Okay,
period.
sure. Yes.
So
Yeah.
since
Okay.
2020.
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
I'm thinking those
So-
small nests fall apart pretty fast compared to an eagle
Right. So the
nest, but yeah.
smaller nests, yeah, you're not going to be able to, you're not going to like be able to figure out what species it was, but things like a cliff swallow, you can kind of tell, right? Because you have a series of nests next to each other and you'll have like a really fresh looking one. And then you'll have some, they get more and more degraded the further like to the side you look. So that's like an easy way to tell like how recent those cliff swallow nests would be. It's a little harder when you're talking like a bald eagle because some of those nests could have been abandoned and taken over by great horned owls or ospreys or something like that. And you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell how old that eagle nest was. But for the most part, we generally know where most of the eagle nests are in the state. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So yeah. I think that's like, I think I've said most of the things that I wanted to say tonight. This is kind of like, you know, the end of the season. It's more like thinking about the data and block review. That's something else I could add. Like if you have been working on a block and you think it might be complete, or even if you're like not sure it's borderline, you can let your regional coordinator know or me or Jared know, and we'll take a look at it. And we can try to mark it, assess it and let you know what needs to be done or whether or not, or let you know if we think it's complete. So yeah, that is one other thing I could say too for kind of this data keeping, making sure your data are all organized and entered and yeah, easy for us to take a look at. Other than that, I'm just curious if anyone else has any other questions about anything or interesting things. I also want to hear about interesting things maybe that you've learned this summer that you haven't learned before. Yes, Anne.
Hi, I finished my priority block that I was assigned to, and it went through as finished, and I felt really good about that.
Great.
Yep, that was great. So then I started doing other nearby priority blocks.
Mhm.
And one of them is a highly industrial block. And
Mm.
I've seen about 6 or 8 different sites and visited them at least 3 times throughout the summer. But the total number of birds seen is small. They're mainly around retention ponds. I'll see one great blue heron sitting in a pond. I'll see some red-winged blackbirds and goldfinch, but there's not, based on that type of habitat, even though it's a priority block, there's
Mhm.
not much there. And so I feel like next year, what I'd like to do is let go of that kind of block and go to one that you all might feel would be more productive. And
Yeah.
so, is there a way for you to give us a list or to shade on the map or something, priority blocks that you'd really like to see more time in?
Yeah. So first let me just say like that I think, so some of the thresholds that we've set for marking a block complete don't apply to every single block. And because of like what you're saying, it's like super industrial, there's not very good habitat, or it's just not accessible as well. And so we realize that, so we will make exceptions for that. So if you would write to us and just say, hey, I've worked really hard on this block and there's just not enough habitat. It's just not good habitat. Then we'll take that into account when and we'll mark that complete. So yeah, so do that. And then the second thing is, yes, we will be working on trying to come up with new strategies to highlight which blocks we really want people to target next year. We're going to have to like pull out all the stops in order to get everything done next year. So yeah, I've been talking with other Atlas projects and seeing what types of maps they've had for their last year, and definitely yeah, some sort of like a color code to say like this block really needs like a lot of help, or this one just needs one visit in July to get fledglings, or this one just needs one April visit to get some of those early nesters or something. So we're gonna try to be working on that over the winter to help you prioritize. Allison. Oh, don't hear you.
Charlie has his hand up too.
Yeah. Allison, I'm not hearing you. So
He's still muted.
I'm gonna let Charlie. Yeah, I hit the button to ask him to unmute. So hopefully I'm gonna see Allison if you can figure it out while Charlie asks his question.
One other thing to do, Anne, is depending on where you live, you can write to one of the regional coordinators near you and ask for suggestions. I know, like, at least in my region, I know blocks that I can suggest people to go to. I'm a regional coordinator in the central region. And that's definitely something where you get someone who has pretty good knowledge of the habitats and areas that might give you some good suggestions. Where do you live?
Hi, I'm Rochester, the Finger Lakes region. And so I think Andrea Patterson or Greg Lawrence might be I'm not sure which one.
Actually, they've both kind of taken a step back. So right now I'm looking to replace Andrea. But for the time being, I would contact either Mike Morganti. I don't know if you know him, or Sue Barth. They're both in Buffalo. They'd be able to help you right now.
Thanks. I thought you gave me great ideas, Julie. And when I was in that rough neighborhood for birds. Every checklist that I did, I noted the type. I would say industrial site, for
Oh, okay.
example.
Yep.
Because how can you go out and just find 6 species in 3 hours or something? But I did try and put in some time in 2 or 3 blocks that another one is just heavy duty, all farmland, farm. And, you know, 100, 600, 800 acres of corn. We're just
Yeah,
not
that's also not
finding-
going to have much.
Yeah. So
You get an A for effort, Anne. Thank you.
I look forward to new places next year. So.
Hang on, Allison, I think you're still muted.
Unmute. Can you
There
hear
you
me now?
go. And then I'll get to
Yeah.
Jim in a second.
All right. As a
Allison.
regional coordinator, and I urge you to go to the Breeding Bird Atlas webpage, go to Explore, go to the county that you want to visit, and then hit blocks, and there's a place to hit priority blocks, and it lists all the blocks, and it will show you the hours. And if you get a block with 6 hours in it, that's a no-brainer. Go there. You get a block with 80 hours, yeah, you maybe want to go somewhere else. And the Finger Lakes region still, well, Schuyler County and the further west, a little bit south of you, all need help.
And I actually think Wayne that's the one that's right south of Monroe, right? Wayne?
Yeah, well,
that one needs tons of help.
the blocks around Montezuma are highly, but you get 20 miles away from Montezuma, they're sitting there, please help me.
Yeah.
So Wayne County is east of Rochester. Livingston is directly
And Livingston,
south, and
yeah.
I bird in Livingston all the time. And
Okay.
I've done the priority blocks all near me. And I do, thank you so much. Maybe others need to know about that too, but I do check the statewide map and look, and that's how I found the ones I've been spending time in. But I just don't, it's been very helpful to have this discussion to say, I don't have to go back to that because it's not a good use of time.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Thank you. But I can certainly go, I'll go south, I'll go west, I'll go east. Great.
Great. Jim.
Hey, I was at the American Ornithological, we call it the AOS Society meeting with a joint meeting with the Canadian, what is that, SOC, Society for Ornithological, or for
Society of Canadian Ornithologists.
Yeah, I'm getting the French acronym mixed up with the English one. Forgive me. I was up there, and Julie, she organized a symposium, well, a full day workshop first, because she is leading up the North American Ornithological Atlas Committee. I don't know if people know that. We are super lucky to have Julie. She's not only helping us push the boundaries in New York, she's helping other people figure out how to do it really well, and also did a symposium. I sit in on some of it. It was super interesting. Every state is different. We're learning from them and they're learning from us. I talked to some people in Ontario. They've got 10-kilometer blocks and they're doing 2 and 3 week canoe trips up to Hudson Bay so that they can at least get some coverage up there. So anyway, just a call out for Julie. She's doing a great job and we're lucky to have her.
Thanks, Jim. I know I really want to organize one of these canoe trips in like the Adirondacks, man. They go all out in Ontario. And they have like guides that carry guns because they're up in like polar bear territory. So they're like hardcore treks that they do up there in Ontario. We wouldn't have to be quite that hardcore here, but anyways, it might be fun to do some sort of like canoe backpacking trip. Arabella says, sign me up. All right. Let's see. So I do see that Bob asked a question as well in the chat.
And I did privately message you as well, Julie, but
Yeah. Okay. Well,
maybe good for everybody to know as well.
yeah, I'll give it
Yeah.
over. Yeah, blah, go over it for everyone. So two questions. First one is, Bob has had a blue-winged warbler on his property every year for the past 5 years. It sings all season, but he doesn't think that there's ever been a female or any young birds. So is that good enough for breeding? And how do you code that? So yeah, I think this is one of those things where different atlases are treating this differently, because some atlases are really interested in only the locations where birds are actually building nests and raising their young. But with our atlas in New York, we're more interested in areas where that birds are using and attempting to breed. And so, because that is occupied habitat and they're trying to breed, they are there. So yes, please do. You can code that as, in that case, it would be an S7 since you've had it all summer. So that's great. And it's great. I will mention, Bob put in the notes that it's been singing both song types meaning both blue-winged song types or also golden wing. No, not golden wing. Okay. I was just gonna say that blue wings and golden wings can sometimes sing each other's songs too. So it can be it's really important for those two species to get a visual on the bird so that you know which species you're actually looking at as best you can, because there's a lot of hybridization and back crosses and things like that in there. So it's hard to tell if something's like a full-blooded or a hybrid, but anyway, hopefully that answers that question, Bob. Yes. All right. Then the second question he asked is, how many priority blocks are there? And what is our expectation for how many are completed? So this was something that we tried to study before we started the project, and we tried to estimate how many blocks we would need to have completed in order to be able to detect a change over time. And I could get into more detail on that. There's a lot of statistics behind that and whatnot, but what we decided was we selected a third of all blocks in the state to be marked as priority blocks. And we did that in a very systematic way, right? Where we have the Northwest and the Center East block in every topo quad marked as complete. So that leaves us with 1,810 priority blocks total. And ideally, our goal is to get all 100% of them finished. Okay. Having said that, we are currently at 27%, maybe 20. Let me just check before somewhere 25.
Pretty close to that.
So, oh no, 29%. Yes. We are almost at 30%. So we will definitely I think we'll probably be around 35 or 40% once we do the final review this fall of all the blocks and all the work that everyone has done this summer. But that leaves a lot of blocks to be completed next year. So I don't really know. We, as the steering committee, we haven't said, at what point will we decide we need to have a sixth year. So the previous atlases in New York did 6-year atlases. We really wanted to do this one in 5 years. That's what we have funding for. We don't have funding for a 6th year. But I think right now our plan, steering committee plan, is to go all out, do as much as we can next year. And then at the end of the next year, determine if we need to have a 6th year to kind of clean up. So,
Julie,
yeah,
and this
Allison.
probably should be for a regional coordinators meeting. Will the regional coordinators have any input if you get extra funding for technicians where we might need help, such as at night or such as Northern Saratoga County, that is off of your grid for technicians? So,
We haven't talked about this yet because I just got back from that the AOS meeting that Jim was mentioning. But yeah, one of the things that I took away from meeting with the other Atlas coordinators who have finished in the last couple of years is that they basically made a plan for every single priority block. And they said, for this priority block, it needs this or this or this. And so all the regional coordinators are going to need to help me to assess what needs to be done for every single block. And then that way we'll be able to more easily like send people to where we need them most, and identify where we need those technicians to come in. So yeah, that's something that yeah, we will talk about at our next regional coordinator meeting in a couple weeks.
thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Jim put a note in the chat saying that when the data are ready this fall, it'd be cool to know like how many blocks are 75% done, 50% done, 10% done. Yes, that is something that I do plan to do. I had done that last year, and most blocks have had some effort. There's still a few. I think last fall there were like 80 blocks that had zero effort at all, that like nobody had been to. There's probably now that I'd say there's probably like 20 or 30 of those blocks. There's been absolutely no visits. But most blocks have had some visit, but I do not know at this point which ones have like 50% or 75% coverage. So that'll be fun to see this fall. And then let's see, Bob asked another question: is the information in non-priority blocks worthless? No, it is not worthless. So while our overall goal for the project is to really get those priority blocks done, because those priority blocks have a representative sample of all of the different habitat types in the state, and it gives us really good spatial coverage. That's why we really want to focus on those priority blocks. The data that are in non-priority blocks are still going to help us fill in gaps and be able to have, provide more information for the distribution of all the different species and where they're breeding in the state. So that is still valuable information, but we do want to just prioritize effort in those priority blocks so that we can do more like regional level analyses, that kind of thing. We want to be able to have the same number of blocks covered in the Adirondacks as we do in the Hudson Valley. That's not really going to happen, but that would be the ideal situation. Charlie?
Just as an example, Bob, a guy just wrote in, he had found confirmed loons nesting in Shenango County. Now, whether that's in a priority block, who cares? I mean, that's important information. So certainly that kind of stuff is really useful no matter where it is.
Yes, that's very true. Anything that's rare or unusual, we want to know where that is, no matter whether it's priority or non-priority block, for sure. Yeah. I think fortunately the birding community tends tends to know where most of those really cool places are, where those rare birds are. So most of those are being reported. But yeah, like this one that just came up that Charlie mentioned, it's totally private lake. There's no birders that go to that lake. Nobody knew about it, but apparently those loons have been there the last couple of years. So that's kind of cool. That's, yeah. Yeah. I just last week, was it last week? Yeah, last week I had somebody just emailed me about long-eared owls nesting, the first record for the atlas. And they were in 2022. I didn't know about it until just a week ago. But I don't think they were in a priority block either. So, but that's still, we want to know where they are. Any other questions? Or does anyone want to share any other interesting experiences from this past summer, or things that they learned that they were surprised about? Nothing surprising all summer.
And I've never heard the fledglings before. My mom and I, we were doing male priority block, and and so we had heard the sound, but they went out like did that like twice, and so we just continued on, and we went back down the road, and we heard the sound because we had already stopped. Like, what is that? And well, so that was really cool to hear it. There were two of them.
Which species again, Arabella? I missed which species.
Barred owls.
Oh, barred owl. That's right.
Screaming.
Nice. Yes, they sound wild. Like, yeah, they don't sound like a bird, really. Anne, you were gonna say something.
Sure. I had a couple of funny things happen. One, for the first time ever, I had a chickadee's nest in a little wren house that I had cleaned out. It had always had house wrens. This year, the chickadees moved in, and I loved it. And I watched them going back and forth like crazy, feeding, in and out of the house, but I never saw a baby. And then, but they went back and forth for a week at least, 50 times a day. And then one day, the next time I looked and I said, I haven't seen them, I went to the box, and the whole front of the box was stuffed full of stuff. So nobody could get in or out anymore. And I haven't taken any action on that box. I will as the end of the season gets there. But I wondered, do they fledge quickly when it's time to leave the box? Do they do something to try and keep others out of the box? I'd never seen anything like it.
No, you saw them feeding for like a week, you said?
A week, at least, maybe 10 or 12 days.
I have a box in Seattle that the black-capped chickadees have used a number of times. Although this year, a northern flicker decided it made a perfect drum. So nobody nested there. But when I've cleaned out the chickadee nest in years past, there's been nothing plugging the opening.
Yeah, so what I was gonna say is, to me, what that sounds like is that a house wren came back, and wrens stuff their boxes full of sticks. So to the point where you're like, how do they even go in there anymore? And how are their babies and eggs in there? And I like sad to say, but I would suspect that they probably came in and killed the young chickadees. I'm not sure they would fledge that quickly. So yeah, unfortunately, that would be my guess of what happened, but maybe not. I mean, maybe maybe the chickadees fledged and then the house wren moved in. But yeah, it sounds like that's definitely a wren behavior.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
The other thing that happened to me just this week is I was out 2 days ago in a new area, and a lot of recovering fields, and indigo buntings were there and just agitated beyond belief, chattering at me everywhere and all around. I hadn't in the last 4 years, I've always seen them up high. They were down at eye level and
Yeah.
following me around and chattering at me, and I coded them as agitated behavior
Yeah.
because they certainly were. But it's an odd time of year, isn't it?
My guess is that they have young fledglings nearby, and they were upset that you were near their fledglings. So because the fledglings do, you're right, what the males will sing from the top of the trees in the spring, but their nest is down in the shrubs.
Okay.
And then also the fledglings will stay down low in the shrubs. So that's probably where they were hanging out, somewhere we were walking. Yeah. And they are late nesters, so they're,
Okay. I'll go
yeah.
back and look for the nests. I couldn't, I thought they nested higher probably, so I could not figure out
No.
why I was bugging them. So,
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, somebody mentioned in the chat that the visual patterns of songs in the Merlin app are surprisingly helpful. And I would agree with that. It's very helpful to be able to confirm, like if it's something that you've studied beforehand too, or you can like listen to a recording that you know is, say, a black and white warbler, and then you're hearing something and you're like, God, it sounds, maybe it's a black and white warbler, or maybe it's a black Bernie, and I'm not sure. And then you use the Merlin app and you can see the sonogram in real time, and then it can help you confirm that, oh yeah, that is a black and white warbler. I use that as an example because that is actually one that I've used that the Merlin app in that way before myself. So yeah, it's very handy. Charlie.
These are actually two remarks aimed at the buntings in question right now. Sandy and I, at this point of the year, definitely find buntings low down. We do a lot of our atlasing by walking along the roads in our area because it's fairly rural. And as I'm walking along, if you start to hear a whole bunch of little chips like beep, 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 we think right away that's buntings, and that's the first thing we're looking for. In fact, Sandy calls it bunting hunting because they're hunting for food. And if you just stand there where those chips are for 5 or 10 minutes, you will eventually see the male and the female and all the little ones bouncing around. So it's definitely this time of year where buntings are outfeeding youngs for sure. And also related to the Merlin app, buntings are known for repeating things twice. If you look at the sonogram in the Merlin app, you can see there's 2 marks and then 2 other marks and then 2 other marks. It's just what the book says it's supposed to be. But I just think it's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. And especially for those of us that have some hearing loss, it's like really helpful to be able to see what we're missing too and confirm. Yeah. We still have 5 more minutes if anyone has more questions or things they want to share. But I do want to say before we hang up, I just want to say thank you so much for all of your hard work. This project would not be possible without your efforts, and we really value every little bit that you can do. It really does make a difference for us, so we really appreciate it. And I really hope that this project is something that you find rewarding for yourself as well. I I find atlasing really rewarding. I feel like I'm always learning something new, and it's a great way to feel closer to the birds and really like understand more about them, their microhabitat preferences and their food preferences, and just being in sync with like the timing and the phenology throughout the summer, I find really special for me. So so hopefully you guys are enjoying that aspect of atlasing as well.
I also want to say thank you. It was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Hopefully we'll have another youth birding club trip next summer too, or maybe a couple. That'll be good. And I'll have to join Wendy this time.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was so much fun.
I know, even in the rain, you guys looked like you had a blast.
It was hard. I didn't put my rain pants outside of my rain boots. So then it got off my raincoat in and started puddle in my rain.
Oh no.
But yes, the when we split into groups, then one group had some maybe killdeer. So I wish I'd seen them. But they also had, I think, a bobwhite that just called. And we had a baby black burning like 4 feet from us, like that
Oh,
big,
wow.
just staring us in the face. A little ball, and it was so hard to see it. It's just sitting on a branch. And then an adult came. It was like around. There were 2 in the area. And it just kind of like hopped and fluttered and flittered like around to the other part of the tree. It was so cute.
Oh,
So thank you.
that sounds really cute. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, we should do a lot of these trips.
Yes, we should do lots of them next year. Hopefully the weather will be better next year. It won't be so wet. We won't have wildfire smoke and we won't have COVID. So maybe next year. All right. Well, as always, you can email any of us, the regional coordinators or Jared or myself, at any time. We're more than happy to help. Yeah, have fun. Let us know if you have any questions, and we will see you probably sooner than we realize.